let's continue our discussion from the previous video. In the previous video, just to recap what we have done, we have talked about SDA a lot in the last 2-3 videos, and we went into the first video. We kind of looked into the tools section, and we looked at the device discovery and topology, such kind of tools which are available at your disposal. Then we went into the app, which is the design app, and the design app we did some basic network related configurations, right, on the global site. We haven't pushed any configuration yet. We have just done the configuration on the portal, on the DNAC portal. Right now, in this particular video, we will actually get into the provision section. Right, we will get into this provision section here, where we will actually be pushing those configurations. Right, remember in the previous video we actually created a configuration template to create a to have a MOTD banner, right, on our devices. So all of that we will be pushing, and we'll be doing some very interesting provision related configuration in this video, right? So let's jump right into it. So let's go back to my DNAC here. Cool. Now once we are on DNAC, what do we do next? We will get to the provision section. Now let me go down from the home page itself just to show you. See here, you have the provision section. So this is what we are going to look into now. So first thing is adding devices to a site, right? So these are all my devices which have been discovered as of now, right? 2 devices which are my border devices. So I'm gonna add this to my site. So I can do it multiple ways. I believe I can select the devices, and there should be provision, add, assign device to site, right? You can do this, or you can even click it directly. Anyway, so let me choose the site. What is the site going to be? In my case, the site is going to be the RCDN 6, right? So I'm going to select that. Let me go down here, the Richardson, and this is the building. So I'm going to select this as going to be my site. Let me select that. I think that got selected. I'm not sure. Save. Yep, that got selected. I can do apply to all so that this guy gets it as well. So I have both of my devices on that particular site now. Let's assign it. Right, so we're basically telling DNAC that these 2 devices are basically on that specific site, right? So that later when we push some configurations, we can push configurations per site. Okay, so the next is let's get to the provisioning part, right, which we have been talking about. So now we'll select the 2 devices, right? You can see earlier I think there were 2 devices appearing here for unassigned devices, but now they would have gone down here, right, to RCDN. I mean here you don't see the number, but that's where they are, because you can see here the site has changed to RCDN, right? So that being said, now let's select these 2 devices, and what we'll do is we will provision them. When I say provision, we are basically going to push configuration. And what we are going to push, all that global configurations which we did in the previous video. So let's go to actions, right? Let's go to provision and provision device. So it's going to give you this pop-up. All of this information looks good. Let's click on next. So here it's giving me option to select the templates which I created in the previous video. So I can select, if I want to select more than one device, I can click on shift and I can create the rest of select the rest of the devices. It's asking me, should I push these templates even if it's deployed before? I'm going to say okay. I mean, I don't think anything is deployed, but still, if you want to forcefully deploy something, you can select this. Let's click on next. So you can review everything DNAC is going to push here, right? Information, the NTP, the AAA stuff, right? All of that information is present here. So once I click this deploy, it's going to log into my device. So before that, let me just go into my device, and I think this should still be enough, right? We'll be able to see the logs. That should be fine. So let's go back and let's hit the deploy button, right? So now when I do this, again, I have an option to schedule it. I'm going to do it right away. So you can see it's validating the config. It's not yet pushed. Yeah, so looks like it's showing me success, but we should be seeing some kind of authentication into the box because the configuration should be pushed, right? Yeah, you can see here some magic is happening, which means the configurations are getting pushed, right? I can see some radius configurations going in, I can see NTP configurations going in, right? Some AAA configurations as well, right, which is good, right? So we can see DNAC is actually pushing in the configurations. Is it completed? Maybe not. We'll have to check that. So let's go back here. Let's refresh this one here, right? We should be able to see something like okay, last updated a few seconds ago, and the sync status should always be in managed state, right? This means that everything is working good. So I believe the configurations are already pushed now, right? So but generally what I see is once the configuration is completely pushed, we can see a log here saying that the SD the user has exited the device. So generally we'll have to wait for that. Once you see that particular log here saying that the user has logged out, that's where you know for sure that DNAC has finished configuring. But you can see some of the stuff here. Remember the banner which I was talking about, that is getting pushed here. There is some radius config, there is NTP config and all of that, right? So I'll just give this maybe a couple of minutes. I'll pause the video and we can come back once everything is done. All right, so it looks good. So this is what I was actually telling. You can see that the SD, the user has basically exited, right? Which means that DNAC looks like it has left my device. Now I can probably go to, let me log in. So log in again. Okay, so I'm inside the device now. If I run something like, I'm not sure if I believe I have saved the configuration from earlier, right? So let's see, do I have something like provision? Yep, so this was the config which I saved earlier after doing, sorry, not provision. I think it was discovered, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, this was the config which I saved, after the discovery. So I'm going to go and compare my current config with that, right? So let's do that. So just to show you guys what DNAC actually pushed in. So I'm going to show archive config differences flash, right? And inside that we'll have to go and put in this particular one because this is the one having everything, right? The discovered one, right? Let's paste that, and we are going to compare that with what? My current config, which is system. Okay, sorry, there's an S over there. Did I miss something? Give me a second. All right, so I think I was missing a small space over there, but it's good. And this is the differences which you see, right? Which DNAC has actually pushed in this particular attempt, right? And we can quickly have a look at what it has pushed. So let's see. So it has pushed in some radius configuration, right? I can see some radius stuff here. It has pushed in some NTP stuff, right? You can see some SNMP traps have been enabled. I can see some CTS related configuration, which will be for our TrustSec stuff, right? So that's been pushed. So basically all of that got pushed in this provision phase, right? And whatever you are seeing right now is mainly for your border 2, but the same configuration would have been pushed even for your border 1 as well. All right, so in the meantime, I went and saved the correct configuration, in the flash. Now what we will do is we will go back to our mind map and see what we have accomplished. So we did this in the provision section. We went and pushed all the stuff which we had done in the design. We also pushed this particular template, right, which we had configured earlier. Now we will start with a little bit of the underlay and overlay configuration, right? So when I talk about underlay, there are two ways to do it, right? So the underlay is basically nothing but let me show you my topology again, right? So this is my topology, right? My underlay is mainly nothing but my border routers here, right? My border routers, if I had some kind of intermediate routers, they might also be present here, but in this case I don't have it. And I also have my edges over here, right? So there should be a underlay configuration. Right now all of these routers don't have any underlay configuration, so we need to have some underlay configuration so that they will be able to talk to each other. And SD access by default uses ISIS as the underlay configuration, and using LAN automation, which we are going to do next, we are actually going to automate that part, right, which is basically pushing the underlay configuration, right? So how this works is, like I said, from my mind map, you can see there is another path which I have defined. You can also do it manually. If you want more control over your underlay, then you can manually go and configure the underlay, and then let's go back and check that, right? So you can manually see there's an option which I mentioned here, manual LAN config. So you can do a manual configuration of your underlay, and then you'll have to add the devices to your DNAC, right? Or maybe run the discovery again, and then the devices will get discovered, right? But we are taking the first approach, which is we are going to use the PNP protocol which Cisco has, right, for zero touch provisioning. We are going to use that and automate our underlay, right? So that's what we are going to do. Now how does this work, right? Just to give you a glimpse of how does it work, there are some prerequisites. One is you need to have one device which will act like a seed device, right? It's called as a seed device. So the seed device can be, in this case, it can be either border 1 or it can be border 2, any one of them, right? So this particular seed device, right, it will become like a DHCP server. It will act like a DHCP server with the DHCP range specified in the DNA center, right? Actually the configured IP pool in DNA center kind of will be split into 4 pieces and it will be used. But for now, just assume that this particular border devices will act as a DHCP server, right? And remember, this is your seed device, right? Any one of them, it can be your border 1 or border 2. So it will act as a seed device. It's a first device. Just like, remember, in your ACI, if you want to do a fabric discovery, the first device which is discovered, right? So that's your seed. So similarly here also you have your seed device, right? Now the PNP device, basically in our case what we are trying to do is mainly we are trying to bring up our underlay. So mainly your E1 and E2, right? The H1 and H2. So these two devices should support the PNP protocol, right? The PNP device, when it comes up without any running, it should come up without any running configuration, right? So when it comes up, what it will do is it will send a DHCP request on VLAN 1, right? On VLAN 1, it will send a DHCP request, right? So as a result, these links should be in trunk, right? These links towards the underlay which we are trying to automate now, these links has to be in trunk, they have to be in the trunk mode, right? So that is one prerequisite. So these guys, when they come up, they'll send a DHCP request along VLAN 1, right? The VLAN 1 gets an IP address from the seed device, which is in our case either border 1 or border 2. So these devices will now get an IP address. It will also get some ISIS configuration as well, because like I was saying, ISIS is going to be the underlay, right? So ISIS configuration also it's going to get. Now underlay gets configured automatically using the IP pool which we defined in the DNA center, right? And I'll show you a specific step. When you hit that stop button, right, what will happen is all these links which are trunk links, they will get converted into layer 3 links or point-to-point layer 3 links, right? Because at the end of the day, we want a completely routed access, right? That's the whole reason of even going for SD access. So only for the PNP protocol to work, right, we are basically going to make this as trunk links, right, on the border, or basically on your seed device. You have to make that as a trunk port, right? I have already done that. You just need to make that as trunk, but the rest of the stuff is taken care by DNAC, right? So it's going to push the configurations, it's going to configure these two guys, and after the configuration, it's going to change these links to what? It's going to change it to the layer 3 links, right? So that's all part of the LAN automation. I mean, if I had to sit and do this manually, it would have taken me a lot of time. But now the seed device, I just need connectivity. I need one device in the fabric to be up, which is the seed device, right? And I need to define this to be the seed device so that, DNAC sitting here is able to, discover these devices and through the seed device and configure them. right? The other thing is the LAN automation works for a maximum of, I believe, 2 hops, right? So from the seed device, if you have 2 hops, right, those are the only devices you can automate. I mean, you can do like iteratively, right? You can probably use LAN automation to automate these 2 devices, and then with respect using this as a seed device, you can go and automate the rest if you have like a multi tier architecture or something. Cool. So that being said, we have let's get started with this. I mean, I think too much of theory is boring, so I'm going to go on to the lab. What do I have as of now? I have this border 1, border 2, right? So let's get started. Let's see what we have to do. So first step would be, remember in my address pools, right? Let's go to the design. If I select here in the, I believe it's under network IP address pools. So remember, I have put some pools here. So we are basically going to use one particular pool, which is the PNP pool, right, for our whole PNP process, because there will be some kind of IP addresses needed, right, to kind of to help with your PNP process. So we have to use a particular pool, right, and this is the pool which we have reserved, or we have created. We haven't reserved it. We have created it, and we will use it now, right? So for reserving it, you will have to go to your site, which is our, RCDN6. So, okay, that's fine. So we go to RCDN6 and we will create a reserve, right? So we'll have to do this. So we'll have to reserve. So we can give any name, right? So let's basically call this as PNP for RCDN6. PNP is a generic protocol, okay? It's not just with SD access. So you can anytime read up on it for much understanding. Since we are basically doing LAN automation, let me select LAN, right? And what else? So the global pool, right, over here, we can select the pool, which is this one, PNP pool, which I had defined earlier, right? The prefix length is going to be /24, no doubt in that, right? So, or I can probably use number of IP addresses, right? So the /24 host, do I want to do that, or let me see. Yeah, I mean, if in my case, I'm pretty much sure I know how many number of IP addresses, but to make it simpler in a larger automation, right, it's better to use the prefix length. So I'm going to use /24, and what's the subnet in my case? Obviously the subnet which I have defined. I mean, I can, if needed, you can even define a smaller subnet, like from the parent one which you are using here, right? In my case, I really have just one site here, so doesn't matter. I'm going to use the whole thing, but you can use like a smaller one as well. What else do we need? So I think that's pretty much it. Do I need anything else? Yeah, that's pretty good. So let's scroll down and let's reserve this. So there you go. You can see here I have reserved it for this particular site, right? So that's done. What do we do next? Now we need to obviously prepare our seed devices. So let's go down here, which is our seed device. It's either going to be border 1 or border 2. I'm not sure if you can provide both. But then let's prepare both of them. So if you see our topology, right, let's go back to the topology. So in our topology, you see the border devices have the ports 1, 0, 10, 11 and 12, right? The port 10 and 11 are basically facing my edges, right? So I'll have to basically clear those 2 ports, right? So I shouldn't have anything on them. So let's do that. So let's probably go back and let's go back to my, so I'm on this border. Right, so okay. Okay, so we are here. What I'll do is, let me just default the interface, because I really don't have, I shouldn't have any config, right? So I'm going to just default both the interfaces. So let me just do that. You can do it using this command, right? You can do just default interface on both of them. So you see I have defaulted both of them, and let's probably go and save this config. That's all right. So the same thing, probably will have to be done on the other one as well. Let's also probably delete any kind of older configuration which we might have. So let's do that as well. So because I've been testing this lab for some time, so there might be some PNP related stuff. So I'm going to do that. Let me just remove that. You can do that using the PNP command, right? So let me do no PNP profile, right? So okay, that's fine. Oh, sorry, I'm doing this on the border. Okay, I meant to do that on the edge, but anyway, so let's finish the borders first, and then we can clear out the edges, right? So let's clear out the borders first. Okay, so we are done with so we are on border 2. So the same thing has to be done. Let me just default both the interfaces. On both the borders, the same interfaces are used. So we have a symmetrical network over there. So let's go and end this, write memory. Okay, so there you go. The borders are all good. Let's also go and check if our switches the edges are all good, right? So the preparation on the edges, that's what I'm getting into right now. So what I have to do is, let's clear out any old junk value which is there. So first thing is, let me remove any PNP profile which might exist. Okay, that's fine. Let's remove any PKI certificate, right? Yes, you want to ensure you want to do this, yes, and that's good. Next, let's delete any VLAN data which probably would have been stored. So let's get rid of that. Sorry, there you go, that's done, nothing is there. And then the last one is some NVRAM stuff as well. That's good. Now let's erase everything. Are you sure you erasing the NVRAM? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. Let's hit continue. Okay, so let's go and reload this device, right? Let's do reload. Do you want to save? I don't want to save, so let's hit no. Yep, please confirm the reload. Okay, so now once you do this, we are not supposed to touch the device, right? Because if you touch, then you would basically so when the box comes back up, now I'm reloading the box, right? When the box comes back up, it will ask you it will give you an initial dialog. So you shouldn't touch that, because if you touch that, then the PNP process will stop, and as a result the device will not reach out to the PNP server to get the configuration. So once you reload, just get your hands off it. Don't touch the device, don't touch the console of the device. In my case, I'm just going to go to the other edge and let's prepare that as well, right? We did the first one, so I'm going to do the same thing on the second one. Let's get into config mode. Let's delete both of the stuff. Right, there you go. Okay, this is yes. That's done. So what else? Let's delete the whole VLAN stuff which we might have, and the certificates. Sorry, NVRAM, right? Any certificates which are on NVRAM. Let's erase it. You want to confirm? Yes. And let's reload this one as well. There you go. Reloading. Do you want to save? No. Cool. It's going to reload now. Right? So we'll let this happen. See here, it's trying to reload, and I'll probably pause this video until they both come up, to the point where we can actually start the LAN automation, right? So let me just pause the video till that point. All right, looks like we have waited enough, and this is what I was telling, right? So once the device is reloaded, you'll get this dialog box saying system configuration dialog, and don't click on yes or no here, because if you do that, then the PNP process will stop, and then we will not be able to do the LAN automation, right? So that's good. So from here I am good. Let's go back here. Let's go to provision. Okay, so we are on the inventory page right now. So on the inventory page, what we will do is first let's do a bunch of things. Remember, we did a bit of configuration on the border router, so it might be out of sync right now. So what I'll do is, let me select both of these devices, and under action, I think it's over here, inventory, I'm going to click on resync. Right, so resync will basically make sure that all the configurations which DNAC has, right, are the latest. So you see the status is in progress now. So let's give it a few seconds. I'll go back to pausing the video until that is done. All right, so that's done. So now I think we are good to start with our LAN automation process. So we will come down to the actions. I think it should be somewhere here, right? See here, you select the LAN automation tab. So this thing comes up, and it's time to put in some details, like for example, the site, right? So we will select the site, which is RCDN6. There's nothing as a peer site, I believe. I don't think we have a peer site, so we'll just skip to the primary site. And the primary device, so this is what I was telling you, can either use you know, border 1 or border 2. In our case, let's say we are going to use border 1. And the IP pool, I think we have to select that. Okay, let's select the ports first, right? So we have to select the ports. So what are these ports? These ports are basically the ports on the border router, right? Which we have to select. So if you go back to our topology, you see the border router has the port number 10, 11 and 12. 10 and 11 are basically towards my edge, and 12 is towards my other peer border, right? So we are going to select that. So let's go here, 10, 10, 10, 11 and 12, right? So that's done. Anything else? So let's click on done here. Yep, so we selected the ports, and after that, discovered device site. So do we need to put in this? Yeah, it looks like it's compulsory, so we will discover device. Okay, device site again. Okay, it's asking me for the device site again. Okay, and the pool, what is the pool? This is the pool which we have defined earlier. Remember, PNP RCDN6, we'll select that. ISIS domain password, looks like that's something new which they have added. So let me just put in the password which I use always, right? That's good. Enable multicast, probably not needed for now, which is fine. And do we want some kind of a device prefix, right? So we might need that. So I'm going to put a prefix saying, what kind of a prefix do we want here? Give it a yeah. So the device prefix, you know, I could probably use something like port 2 dash edge, right? So my device host names of my edges, which are going to be configured now, will have this as the you know, prefix, which is fine. So that should be good. Maybe let me enable multicast as well. What else? I mean, maybe it might be needed later. So that being said, looks good. So we will hit the start button. So when this happens, we should see the network orchestration starting, which is all right. We have an option here, I believe, for checking the status. So we can do that. Let's go to actions, provision, and we can do LAN automation status. And this will continuously update you about what is happening in the background, right? We can also check here, right? We should start seeing some magic happening here on the devices, right? The devices getting connected and configured and so on. So let's wait for that. Takes a bit of time. Again, this process again takes probably like 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll have to wait. Let's wait. Yep, so looks like the device is trying to connect. You can see here the PNP process has started, right? And that should be happening on both the edges. Yep, it's happening on both the edges, which is a good sign. Right, so DNAC is doing more stuff on it, which is cool. If you refresh this, you should start seeing, you can see the status is initialized right now. So once this is completed, you will see something like success here, right? So right now it is doing that same stuff which I was explaining earlier. It's trying to make the ports, trunk ports, and pushing the configurations. So DNAC will act as a PNP server now. So the configurations from the PNP server is getting pushed down to the edges, and the underlay, the ISIS configuration is getting pushed. And what else? So you see it's initialized now. Let's see what else has happened. Yeah, I can see some stuff happening. Some TFTP script execution not successful. I think that should be fine. What is happening on the other one? Yeah, the same thing. So now that you have seen that something is happening, let me just pause the video and probably come back once this is completed. All right. So looks like the first step of our PNP process is completed. You can see that the devices are visible here, right? The new devices are appearing down here, which is a good sign. You can see the two edge devices are seen here. Let's go back and check the status here as well. Under the devices, you see it looks like it's completed, but actually you see the actual process is still not completed, right? Because we still have a bit of stuff to do. But let me just go back and talk about that. So let's go to the border router first, right? So okay, what's happening here? So we are on border. Okay, so these were the two edge routers. You can see the DNAC has exited the system, which is fine. But I want to take a minute to explain what has happened on the border router as well, right? Because border router or the seed router, right? Seed device plays a very important role in PNP, correct? So maybe we can just have a look at the logs here. What has happened? Let's just get this. Yeah, so you can see some of the stuff which is configured is I can see some ISIS configuration has gone in, right? Just like what we talked about, because it's the underlay. We also see the ports being transitioned to VLAN 1, right, as access ports here. And what else do we have? We have some remember I talked about DHCP, right? So these C device access a DHCP, so that's there. And there's SVI getting configured as well. You can see the ISIS adjacency has come up, right? So that's pretty cool. Maybe we can even see that here as well. This is login. Right, so I should say show run. Maybe let's just go to the section. Right, as you see here, the ISIS configuration has gone in, so I should have here we go. We have ISIS neighborship with edge 1 and edge 2, because we have 2 legs per edges, right? So you can see 2 neighborship. Anyway, so that's all good. What we will do next is so right now those links are basically trunk links, right? So we have to convert those trunk or basically your access links into your L3 links, because that's what is needed. PNP process basically uses it as a L2 link, but we have to convert it into a L3 link now. So for doing that, we will go back to our portal here and come here. Let's refresh. I think everything is good. So we'll go and click on the button stop, right? So when we do that, you can see the configuration, probably there'll be a new configuration getting pushed. We should see it anytime now. Yeah, see the DNAC has logged in right at the bottom, and it is trying to do some configuration. Let's wait for that. I see the DNAC accessing here as well. You see the configuration getting pushed. Looks like the interface is coming up. right? So here we should be able to see the progress. Once everything is completed, we'll get like a completed message over here. So only after hitting the stop button under LAN automation, the links basically convert from L2 to L3. You see the configuration happening. So let me go back and pause the video so that this completes. All right, so looks like that is completed now. Now we can go back and check the status here. You can see the status looks completed, which means we are good here. Let me go and refresh it here as well. Okay, so that's good. So what we'll do next is let's provision the two edges, right? So when I say provision, what we have done till now is we have done just LAN automation, which is we have configured the underlay, right? We have configured the ISIS configuration, but there are a little bit of more stuff which we have set up, right? Under the network settings, under the design tab, remember we set up the DHCP, DNS, NTP, AAA and all of that. So we have to push that. So let's push that as well. So just always before pushing, make sure that it is in the managed state. Yeah, looks like it is in the managed state, because if some process is happening, then you don't want to kind of like intrude with that, right? So select and let's go to provision device. Make sure that they're connected to the correct sites. I really don't want the MOTD, so I'll skip this. I mean, I had put it on the border devices. I really don't want this on the edges, so I'm going to skip that. Let's go here and yeah, that's it. I mean, you're going to hit the deploy button. So now again, DNAC will try to connect to these devices and push those configuration, which we really need, like DHCP, DNS, AAA and all of that. So that's going to happen. See, it's already started connecting. I can see some configuration getting added already. I can see some AAA stuff right over here. It should be happening on both the edges. There you go. The device is actually the switch is telling that this particular the radius server is alive. So it is able to talk to the radius server, which is a good sign. Let's see if this got completed. Let's refresh it. Okay, looks like maybe it is completed. Let me give it a few more seconds. Yeah, the running configuration has been synchronized, so looks good. I think it's completed, which means let me just see if everything looks good. So meanwhile, let's give it a couple of seconds and let's go and check what has happened on ICE, right? So you see DNA would have pushed some things on the ICE as well. Let's see what has happened on the ICE. So we are on the ICE right now, and let's go to, where do we go? Let's go to my network devices, and there you go. Look what ICE has done. So I mean, look what DNA has done. DNA has added those devices, the fabric devices, right? The border 1, border 2, edge 1 and edge 2 has been added down to my ICE as well. Okay, which is a good thing. So what else do we have to do here? If everything is completed, we can probably go and verify. Yeah, looks like the admin has exited, so which means we can go and verify. So what I want to show you here is the AAA configuration which has been added on my edges, right? So let's check that. Let's log in. Okay, so let's do something like show run and section AAA. Right, there you go. Some AAA configuration has come in. Right, this was a plain box. Okay, there was nothing on this, and you can see some DNA group is present here. The ICE has been added here. Right, this is the IP of my ICE. So you can see that is here, and there is a bunch of authorization and accounting stuff being added as well. Right, we can also check the radius servers probably. We'll have to run this command for that. Show radius server all. There you go. So the radius server has been added. The DNA client radius group. And what else? Let's test if the the ICE is working fine, right? So what we'll do is, I'm not sure if there is a user ID over there. Let me check. So identities. Have to go down to identities and maybe I'm not sure if I added it. Let me give me a second. Let me check that. Yeah, so probably I did not add it. So let me add that again. So let's go to administration, identity management, identities, I think over here. Yeah, so I don't have it here. So what I'll do is let me add a user. Right, so let's add a user. We'll call the user as basically the user which we have been using for a long time. So let's say STA admin. Okay, and the password is going to be the stuff which we have used. So space that. Okay, the enable password is also going to be the same. Right, so and let's go and save this. I think, yeah, that's good. So there you go. We have added a user over here. So what I'll do now is, from the device, from the edge, right, I want to kind of verify if my ICE integration, or basically the ICE is actually working, right? If the ICE is really accepting my user credentials, and is it working fine, right? So there's a test command, I believe, for doing this. So let's do that. So let's just run the test command. So I think I have it here. Right, so there you go. So we'll do a test AAA group, the radius group which I showed you earlier, right? This is the group which got added, and I'm okay, someone is trying to, okay, so we will also use the username, which is HTA admin, the password and legacy. So when you hit this, there you go. So it is telling me that ICE actually successfully authenticated the user, right? This is a quick way to test if you have the connectivity to ICE and if it is able to kind of like authenticate you back, right? The other stuff which we can check is CTS stuff, right? So you can see the CTS pack has been received, which is good. So this is basically like a authentication mechanism for your TrustSec, right? So so the device has received that from ICE. Let's see if the device received the SGT data, right? So show CTS environment data. There you go. All the default SGTs are visible here, which is a good sign. What else do we need? Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's always good to check this on both the edges, but since we have done, it looks pretty good. What else? Let's actually go back and finish this video just by checking out. Let's go to settings, or let's go to policy. Okay. Or probably we'll check out the policy in the next set of videos. So I think this should be good. So we kind of what did we do in this particular video is we started with looking at our mind map, and we had finished design in the previous video. So we went and did provision. Under provision, we basically went and did the configuration templates, and we also went and did a bit of the underlay part, right? We used the PNP LAN automation, and we were able to automate the whole underlay, right? We did that. And then we also checked that the devices are visible on the inventory page. If you go for a manual approach, then you will have to probably manually add the devices to DNAC, right? So That's all for this video, and do tune in for more videos in the future. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.